The film opens on a dark night as a family sets off on what they hope will be an ideal vacation. Once they arrive at their destination, the parents are the first to hop out of the car, almost forgetting about their child for a moment. The next day, another family, the Daltons, Ben, Louise, and their young daughter, Agnes, came to Italy to escape their daily routine. While Agnes's parents enjoy the sun, a man approaches Ben, asks to borrow his casual sunbed, and then moves it over to his family. This group stands out due to their peculiar vibe. The quirky family consists of Patty, his wife Chiara, and their son Ant, who draw attention for their unusual behavior. Later, Ben and Louise decide to go out, leaving Agnes with a babysitter. Upon their return, they run into Patty and Chiara again. Although Ben notices their oddness, nothing significant occurs at that moment. Eventually, the Daltons have a quiet dinner and chat with other guests at the retreat. However, things take a turn when Agnes loses her cherished stuffed toy, Hoppy. After that, Patty and Chiara reappear, this time holding Hoppy, and they introduce their son, Ant. Full of energy, Patty offers Agnes a ride on his motorcycle. Initially hesitant, her parents eventually agreed after some consideration. Patty takes Agnes on a short ride, and when they return, he invites her parents to dinner at a nearby restaurant, suggesting it would be nice to have a deeper conversation. During dinner, they discuss their jobs and exchange ideas for shared experiences. Patty, always smiling, remarks on how pleased he is that Ben and Louise seem a bit more serious and reserved in their ways. At that moment, Agnes interrupts, asking if she can play with Ant. Although her parents are initially unsure, they ultimately agree to let her have some fun with him. During the conversation, Patty drops an unexpected piece of news. His son was born with a tiny tongue, which made speaking difficult and making it difficult for him to connect with other kids. Patty and Chiara, laid back and full of life, invite Ben and Louise to celebrate that night, raising a glass to their new friendships. However, Agnes's family, who live in London, must soon return home. The tension between Ben and Louise becomes apparent as their relationship is going through a rough patch. Ben has lost his job and arguments with his wife have become more frequent. Louise mentions they've received Patty's letter to lift Ben's spirits. In his unmistakable enthusiasm, Patty expresses how much they miss their fantastic week together in Italy, even inviting them to visit for a weekend. Eager to break the monotony and seek a new adventure, Ben thinks accepting the invitation is a great idea. Louise, however, is more cautious, pointing out that they barely know Patty and his family. But after considering their situation, they decide that a change of scenery might do them some good and agree to the visit. Patty and Chiara's house is on a remote farm far from London, so Ben's family embarks on a long, exhausting road trip. The hours on the road become a bit stressful, but finally, after what feels like forever, they reach their destination. Patty and Chiara, full of excitement, welcome them with open arms and offer drinks, maintaining their relaxed and carefree vibe. However, Ant shows little enthusiasm when he hears about the family's unexpected visit. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, always extravagant, Patty proudly presents his guests with blood oranges from Italy, exclaiming that he sacrificed the best goose from the farm in their honor. The main course will be blood orange goose. Following a family tradition, the first to taste the dish must be a woman, so they offer the first bite to Louise, disregarding the fact that she had mentioned at the retreat that she is vegetarian. Despite an awkward moment during dinner, the evening continues as usual. Later, feeling overwhelmed, Ben steps outside for some fresh air. That's when Anne appears, trying to say something, but his struggle to speak frustrates him. Patty arrives and sternly tells Ant to go to bed, ending the interaction. Later, Ben and Louise have a private conversation with Patty and his wife, reflecting on the purpose of their trip. They conclude that the entire experience feels like a digital detox, a retreat from people and technology, especially since the internet is unavailable. Louise expresses her discomfort about eating meat at dinner, mainly because their hosts had killed their prize goose in their honor. As they prepare for bed, they notice a dried blood stain but dismiss it, assuming the room hasn't been used. During their conversation, they remark that what seems ordinary differs entirely from Patty's quirky family. Just then, Agnes arrives saying she can't sleep. To help her, they use an app that teaches breathing techniques, and eventually, they all get some sleep together. The next day, both families decide to go hiking in the area. While walking, they light a campfire and spot a fox. Enjoying coffee, Agnes complains that Ant won't let her play with him, eliciting Patty's immediate reaction. Without hesitation, he forces his son to play with Agnes, making Louise uncomfortable as she observes the situation. Louise also experiences pain in her neck, and since Patty is a doctor, he offers a peculiar solution: cold water therapy. When they reach the river, they notice a strange scar on Chiara's abdomen. When asked about it, she explains that she fell off a ladder while picking apples. But the group doesn't pay much attention to her story. Everyone decides to jump into the water, even though Ant doesn't know how to swim. Kiara reassures them that Patty always takes good care of him. After much encouragement, Louise finally jumps in too, and they all enjoy the moment, at least for a while. Later, as they head back to Patty's house, they nearly get into an accident due to a technical issue. This incident heightens the tension between Ben and Louise, who suggests using her neck pain as an excuse to leave immediately. Just then, Kiara invites them to a special dinner, mentioning that a local hunter named Mike, known for his excellent cooking, has prepared a meal at his restaurant. Kiara insists the place is top-notch and a great chance to relax, so they decide to go. A few hours later, they prepare to head out. Before leaving, Patty announces that the kids won't join them since it's an adults-only night. According to Patty, they hired a babysitter who escaped from the war and worked illegally but was trustworthy and a good guy. Since Ben and Louise have used babysitters for Agnes, they agree. When they arrive at the restaurant, Patty reveals they will be the only customers that night. They meet Mike, the chef, who hunts his own ingredients. During dinner, Louise reminds everyone that she's vegetarian, leading to apologies for having served her goose the night before. Luckily, since she eats fish, they offer her a seafood dish instead. Meanwhile, back at the house, the kids are playing hide-and-seek with the babysitter. At one point, Ant shows Agnes a collection of watches that belong to Patty. Just as they're about to be found, he tells her to keep quiet, and they continue playing. Back at the restaurant, Patty and Kiara start sharing intimate details about their relationship, revealing that they have been together for 17 years and still maintain an active sex life with nightly encounters. This contrasts sharply with Ben and Louise's life. As Louise mentions, they barely have intimacy once a month if they're lucky. During dinner, Kiara openly flirts with Patty, and together they play a prank on the couple. At the night's end, they make an excuse to leave, hopping into their car and leaving Ben and Louise to foot the bill. Meanwhile, at the house, Ant shows Agnes something disturbing: the marks left on him by his father, Patty, when he hits him. Just then, the mothers arrive home, and when the kids hear them coming in, they pretend to be asleep. Later, Ben and Louise get into a heated argument. Ben mentions that he found some compromising messages on Louise's phone from another man. In response, Louise apologizes and reminds him that despite everything, she stood by him when he lost his job and helped him through it. She confesses that with all they've been through recently, she's unsure if he is with her out of love or fear of failing alone. After this honest conversation, they reconcile and promise to work together to improve their relationship. After the fight, Louise checks on their daughter, but finds her missing from her bed. Worried, she searches the house until she discovers Agnes sleeping in Patty and Kiara's room. Outraged, she grabs her, hurriedly packs their things, and tells Ben it's time to leave. As they drive away, Ant watches sadly as Agnes departs. After a long ride, Agnes suddenly remembers her beloved stuffed toy, Hoppy, and realizing she doesn't have it, she throws a tantrum that escalates until she starts having trouble breathing. Frantically, Ben searches for the toy among their belongings. When they realize they left it at Patty's house, they have no choice but to turn back, knowing their daughter can't live without it. Upon returning to Patty's house, Louise explains that they left in a rush because she found Agnes sleeping in their host's bed, which made her deeply uncomfortable. Sensing the tension, Kiara steps in and shares a painful detail. They once had a daughter named Mary, who passed away at just 12 weeks old. She explains that when she heard Agnes crying inconsolably, her instinct was to comfort her by bringing her to sleep with them. Kiara sincerely apologizes, which eases the tension and makes it seem like the situation is resolved. With the atmosphere calmed, the Dalton family decides to stay a bit longer, partly because Agnes insists they can't leave yet. She feels the need to help Aunt, her new friend. While the mothers chat, the kids continue to paint. Amid this, Aunt tries to communicate something important to Agnes by writing down a message, but she can't quite understand it. When Agnes tells her mom about it, her mother dismisses it as just a bunch of scribbles. Moreover, Agnes can't show the message because Aunt swallows it out of fear. Meanwhile, Patty and Ben go for a walk. Patty tells Ben that he doesn't want to pry. Still, he overheard the argument and understands how tough it is to deal with infidelity. Even though Ben insists it was just some text, Patty encourages him to let go of that emotional baggage and offers to help. In a therapeutic gesture, Patty takes him to a secluded spot and suggests they scream as loudly as possible to let it all out. Together, they shout until exhausted, sharing a moment of relief and happiness. Back at the house, Louise accidentally cuts her hand while preparing food. Feeling relaxed since there's a doctor present, Ben doesn't worry too much. Patty suddenly admits that he's not actually a doctor. Confused, they remind him that he claimed to be one in Italy. Patty jokingly replies that he doesn't actually work, and they survive by selling a bit of drugs. After a brief pause, he laughs and reassures them it was just another joke, clarifying that he is a doctor. During lunch, Chiara begins teaching Agnes manners, which makes Louise uncomfortable. She feels like her role as a mother is being undermined. Upset, Louise asks Chiara to stop instructing her daughter, reminding her that she is the mother and knows how to raise her. Sensing the tension, Patty explains that Chiara grew up in an orphanage, which might explain her desire to correct and teach other kids. Feeling guilty, Louise ends up apologizing, and the confrontation comes to an end. Later, the kids excitedly show their parents a dance they've been practicing. However, things don't go as planned. Ant struggles to keep up with the music and coordinate with Agnes, deeply irritating Patty. Frustrated, he orders them to start over, saying he can't stand watching his son struggle to keep the rhythm. As he keeps repeating his demands, Agnes feels uncomfortable and no longer wants to participate in the dance, creating a tense atmosphere. In response to the awkwardness, the adults begin drinking more than usual to ease the tension. When Patty finally falls asleep, Louise suggests to Ben that it's the perfect time to leave since everything is getting too strange. However, Ben, still a bit drunk, prefers to stay a little longer to have coffee and ensure nothing wrong happens. Just then, Chiara approaches Louise and warns her they shouldn't leave before Patty wakes up, hinting that it could be dangerous for her and Ant. Meanwhile, Ant, who seems to have a plan, steals his father's keys and purposely throws his ball towards the chickens, leading Agnes to the basement, where he shows her something unsettling: several suitcases belonging to former guests and old photographs. At this moment, a dark secret is revealed. Patty isn't actually his father. Ant confesses that his real dad was murdered and had his tongue cut out. It also seems that Patty and Chiara are responsible for the disappearance of multiple families. Thinking fast, Ant tells Agnes to take pictures with her phone as evidence of what they found. They manage to leave the basement without being noticed. However, when they return, Ant sees that Patty is already awake. With a more affectionate attitude, Patty asks Ant for a hug. To avoid suspicion, Ant slips the keys back into his father's pocket quickly and discreetly without anyone noticing, and everything seems to continue as usual. Later, Agnes comes up with the perfect excuse to step away momentarily. Her first period has started, and she asks her mother if she can go to the bathroom to clean up. Once inside, she shows Louise the pictures she took in the basement. Alarmed, Louise tells Agnes to stay calm and act as if everything is okay to avoid raising any suspicions. After reassuring her daughter, Louise goes off to find Ben. However, she soon realizes that the hosts are starting to suspect something, as Chiara notices the tension in Louise's neck. When Louise and Ben finally reunite, they agree that their only chance of escaping this situation is to act naturally, as if they don't know anything. They can't show any fear or nervousness, as that would betray them. However, Agnes feels too scared to keep pretending. Eventually, they devise an excuse. Agnes has just gotten her first period, feels very anxious, and needs to leave immediately. With this justification, they plan to leave the house immediately without drawing more attention. Sticking to their plan, the family says their goodbyes to Patty and Chiara, trying to act as calm as possible. But when they reach the car, they discover that one of the tires is flat. Ben, feeling nervous, suggests calling for roadside assistance, but Patty confidently insists he can fix it himself. With calm efficiency, he changes the tire. Just as they are about to finally leave, Agnes suddenly remembers something important: her beloved stuffed toy, Hoppy. Without Hoppy, she feels she can't go. Looking around, they spot Hoppy on the roof. Always eager to help, Patty holds a ladder for Ben to climb up and retrieve the toy. However, when Ben gets it, they find that Hoppy is completely torn apart. Exhausted and disturbed by the day's events, Agnes doesn't care anymore. She wants to leave that place. As they say their goodbyes, Patty says, in a tone that straddles sincerity and sarcasm, that he hopes to hear from them, though he doubts it will happen. Louise bluntly tells him that their marriage is probably on the verge of falling apart. She confesses that she cheated because she was unhappy. Although she apologized this weekend, she clarified that they might be unable to overcome this situation. Surprisingly, Patty and Chiara seem almost pleased with her honesty, as if the truth provided the best way out. Just as they are about to cross the fence and leave the house behind, something unexpected happens. Patty throws Ant into the water, but Ben rescues him since Ant can't swim. However, it turns out to be a trap. They cannot leave the fenced area, and the family is captured again. Patty explains that everything they've experienced has been part of a twisted game. He demands payments and transfers, claiming that they enjoy having friends who feel morally superior for befriending someone disabled like Aunt. He also admits that they stay with Aunt because Kiara has always wanted a child, but their attempts to start a family have never worked out. As Patty is about to inject something into Agnes, Louise, in a desperate act, attacks him with a knife she had hidden. Chaos breaks out. In the frenzy, the family manages to escape, locking Patty and Kiara behind a padlock. Kiara pleads for help, but no one believes her. Just as they're about to cross the fence, Mike, the hunter, shoots at them. Not knowing what else to do, the family runs back to the house, looking for help, but the line is cut when they try to call emergency services. Ben panics, but Louise, a mix of desperation and courage, yells at him to calm down. Moments later, the power goes out too, snapping him back to reality. They hide the kids in a closet, giving them clear instructions to stay silent until they return. Now, knowing the confrontation is unavoidable, they prepare themselves. Patty is furious at their betrayal, and the car fire they tried to use to escape warns them that he's coming into the house to finish them off. Mike enters first through the roof, followed by Patty and Kiara, all armed and ready to end what they started. Patty chases after Louise with a furious expression. Louise surprises him just as he is about to open the door where she is hiding. She injures him, managing to escape in the process. Meanwhile, Kiara, completely unhinged, joins the hunt for the kids. During this intense search, Ant cannot control his coughing fit, inadvertently revealing the children's hiding spot. Guided by the sound, Patty finds his way to the closet where the kids hide. However, when he opens the door, he discovers they are not there. Instead, he only finds the phone with the app they used to calm Agnes. Suddenly, Louise appears out of nowhere and, with surprising boldness, throws acid on him. Patty screams in agony. Taking advantage of the chaos, Louise grabs the kids and runs for it. As they flee, Kiara rushes to help Patty, desperately trying to wash the acid off with water, but the damage is already done. Meanwhile, Mike the hunter has cornered Ben in another part of the house. He lifts a sharp mirror, ready to stab it into Ben's eye. But just at the last second, Louise intervenes, landing a solid blow with a hammer, saving Ben. The hit is so strong that Mike collapses to the ground, motionless. And with that final strike, they finish him off for good. As for Patty, injured, he orders Kiara to finish them off while he recovers. The kids try to escape through the roof, but Kiara appears at the window. However, Louise suddenly shows up above and shoves her to the floor. Then Ben sacrifices himself by jumping down to set up the ladder. But he only fractures his leg. He gets the ladder in place and everyone climbs down, but they hear a noise and think it's Patty. However, it's just a fox and their panic subsides, but their fear returns when Patty shows up with Agnes in his arms. He looks at his dead wife and says they have taken Kiara from him. Now Agnes will be his new Kiara. However, being as clever as ever, Agnes has kept the sedative meant to put her to sleep. She injects Patty with it. As Patty weakens, both parents point a gun at him, but they refuse to pull the trigger. Instead, they begin to leave. Before they go, Ant picks up a brick and, in a rage, makes Patty unrecognizable, releasing all the fury he has been holding inside. After Ant kills Patty, they eventually leave the farm together.